Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special episode of First Ring Daily. But before we kick the show off today, Paul, today's show is brought to you by Smart Deploy, IT tools to manage your Windows computers made easier. Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
Go check them out at smartdeploy.com/Thurrott for some free licenses with a year-long support. And I'm actually hearing pretty good things. I actually talked to a listener yesterday who is actually checking these guys out now. So,
this
with
is
that,
the real deal. That's what's cool about it.
Yeah, no, it really is.
Not advertising some crap. Like, this is the real deal.
I was going to make some joke about some third-party knockoff hardware, but I will refrain myself from that. So, Paul,
yes,
some big changes today happening to Thurrott.com. We did actually a pretty good job of not even spoiling this like we usually do. In some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
But why don't you dive in there real quick, and then we can backfill as needed.
All right. Well, actually, let me just bring this up. I just want to make sure I don't forget anything, because there is a lot to it. You know, you and I and the other folks that we work with have been talking forever, actually. I mean, on an ongoing basis about, ways that we can improve the site, and specifically for premium users as well. And I think one of the things most people would probably agree with, even if they feel like they're getting value from Thurrott Premium, is that there just isn't enough premium content, and it's just an issue of time, and we've really wanted to improve that situation for some time. And this week, I think we've found the solution, or at least we're taking a step in that direction. We hired Mehedi Hassan as our new senior news editor. He was most recently at MS Power User. He's awesome. And one of the things I've always said, this goes back to before Brad came on board, actually, is, back in the day, back when we first started Thurrott.com, George and I were talking about the need for, kind of a band of brothers, a team of equals kind of thing. And it's something I've always wanted. It's something for me that goes back, 20 years when I first started doing this stuff. I always sort of envisioned it as a team. The trouble is, and you know this, Brad, because you see what's out there, is finding high quality people who are kind of on the same page with me and with us now is difficult. I mean, we're looking for a certain level of quality. We're looking for a certain level of analysis. It's not enough to say, hey, this happened, but to put it in perspective with, why did this happen? How did this happen? What does this relate to in the past? It's the little things that I've always tried to add, that we both always try to add to the articles that we write. It's not enough just to copy and paste from a blog post, that Microsoft or some other company puts out or whatever. Mehedi is he fits the bill, and it's great. And there really aren't that many people out there. We have lots of friends who do what we do. And certainly there are some, great people out there and some not so great people out there, but Mehedi is right at the top of the list. And we are very, very lucky to have him on board. It's awesome. So what Mehedi's going to focus on here is this news, or as this title suggests, is news. And this will free me up to focus more on the other stuff, which is, analysis, largely hardware and software reviews, tips and how-tos and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to be dividing my time very differently than I did in the past. If you think about the past year with Thurrott Premium, for example, and if you were to look at, whatever number of articles I've written, a very small minority of those were directed specifically at the premium audience. Going forward, that's going to flip pretty much. People who are not in premium, I'm not going to disappear. I am going to keep some of my content on the non-premium side as well. And in fact, I'm going to be upping these types of content very specifically, but by which I mean I will be writing more of that kind of content as well. The content that will be non-premium from me going forward is reviews, hardware and software, and also interviews, which frankly I haven't done a ton of. But if you think back to the work I did for the Insider program or the Visual Studio launch back in, I think, February, March, or more recently that I interviewed those two folks from Microsoft about progressive web apps. Those are the kind of things I've always wanted to do more of. It's very time intensive. And of course, now I have more time to do that. And so I will. And for the premium folks, I'm going to have a dialogue with you because I have some ideas about the types of content that I think is going to make more sense for that audience, but I want to hear what they want as well, what you want. And so we'll be having that conversation very soon. As part of this change too, and because, we always sort of evaluate the mix of premium and non-premium content on the site. One of the things that we've all sort of agreed with over the past year is that this podcast, First Ring Daily, it's fun and it's casual and it's kind of Brad and I, and it's got its own little vibe, but it sounds like a criticism. I mean, I suppose it is, but it's not particularly premium, right? And we've decided to make this a non-premium feature of the site. It's going to be available to everybody. This will be the first episode where everyone can see it on a Monday, at least. In the past, we've done the Friday live shows for everybody, but it will be non-premium. The one thing that will remain premium that's related to First Ring Daily are those fun behind-the-scenes videos that Brad makes, which are so excellent after so many of our big trips. And so, we have a trip coming up to Hawaii in the coming weeks.
Please say that again, Paul. Where are we going?
Hawaii. Not a terrible place to go in December.
No, I mean, the worst, not to interject, but here's the downfall of all this is quite literally maybe today or tomorrow, Paul and I are going to book our stuff for CES, which is to Las Vegas, which is the worst place you have to go. I also got up here, Paul. I think this image is perfect. I wanted Paul to include this in the post, but he had some copyright issues. But this is, if you're not familiar, this is The Hangover. This is the Wolfpack scene. And I don't know who these three people are, but we all agree that this is Raph.
Yep. I think we all think of ourselves as the Bradley Cooper character on the right, but we're some mix of those other guys.
Yep. Yeah, and Vegas, but anyways, we've got to go there.
Vegas
too,
is interesting because I think, I'm sorry, Brad. I think we'll have a good video out of that as well. Although I will say, in the scope of things that I do that are work related, I would put going to Vegas right above doing expense reports.
Yeah, see, the only problem is that Vegas creates an expense report. So it's just like a tumbling downhill of...
It's the gift that keeps on giving, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, no doubt about it. For people who are concerned that I won't be as available, I just wanted to remind everybody, I record 3 podcasts every week. I record 7 podcast episodes every week. I'm on Twitter all day long. I will be doing more reviews and more interviews, and so I'm there. But if you feel like you're missing out on me for some reason, and God help you, I guess, we are also today kicking off a sale on Thurrott Premium, which we do typically for the holidays. And so, as I believe was the case last year, a year of Thurrott Premium right now is $48 compared to the normal price, which is $64. So you can evaluate it, going forward. But this sale will be in place through the end of the year. You can kind of see what the shift looks like and think about whether or not that makes sense for you. And I think that is most of it. Is that everything?
Yeah. This is kind of an important evolution of the site. I know this, to some people saying, you just bring in Mahidi on board. Paul's going to write more. But it's really more about just growing up, because it's going to change the content mix. I'm a big fan of what Mahidi does. We've been talking to him for a while. And so this wasn't just something that's like, come over on board. Like, we all sat down and said, hey, what's the strategic direction we want to take with the site? We like the way things are going, but we all know that more content behind the premium block is what drives people to that process. And to be completely candid, that's kind of the way we're going. That's what people asked for at the end of the day, was that our premium users said, hey, we want Paul to write longer, more in-depth things. And I think, Paul, you said, yeah, that's great. But the problem is that there's only basically 24 hours in a day. Some days there's a little bit more when we have that leap year or leap day or whatever leap hour thing.
Yep.
But on average, there's 24 hours a day and there's only so much you can do. And so he said, okay, how can we change up the mix to allow Paul to have more time to write that more in-depth analysis stuff that people, quite frankly, love. We can tell by just the comments on it, the traffic to that stuff. People really like it. And so we want to make sure Paul has that ability. And Mahidi was right time, right place, right person. Excellent personality. That was the other thing, too, is I use this image as a joke, but he really does fit in because I think
that's
his first
huge.
email...
I cannot stress enough how huge that is.
I think his first email was, he said, hey, I'll make my announcement post in the thread, in the forum, and then I'll take the day off. And that's like the exact...
We're like, you win, you fit in.
Yep, that's right where we needed to be. And so I'm excited about this. I'm excited to see how this kind of not reshapes Thurrott, but just kind of helps us. Again, we're always looking to grow. We're always looking to make changes. And this is one of the first big changes from a content and editorial perspective that we made, I think, probably since I've come on board.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, obviously, Thurrott Premium itself was a big step, and we really do spend a bunch of time. In fact, we meet every week about this, trying to figure out the right path forward. And obviously, you want to attract more subscribers, but you want to make sure that the people who are paying for this see the value in it. And a lot of people do. I mean, I don't mean to suggest we've been kind of, we have, I guess, been under delivering in some ways, but the point is we're kind of victims to time, and it's just the way it is. There are days and weeks even where just stuff happens, and it's just the way it is, and things get in the way. I have been writing news for literally over 20 years now, and it's a big part of my day. I mean, this is going to be an interesting shift for me, right? I'll need everyone's kind of patience as I make that kind of move. But, one of the way, I didn't write this in the post, but, one of the things that Brad and I and the other people in the team have discussed in the past is this notion that sometimes a news item happens and you can say, hey, here's the, whatever. And sometimes Brad will write that post, and then I can kind of come in afterwards and say, hey, this is interesting. Let's look at this more deeply and kind of provide a broader analysis of that news story. And I expect to do a lot of that kind of stuff with Mahidi. And, we'll see. We'll see how it evolves. I mean, it's going to be. I'm probably just going to sit here playing video games all day. Is probably how it's going to go. But I anticipate being able to spend more time on much longer and maybe deeper pieces than maybe I have in the past.
Yep, it's. If we had a crystal ball, we would know exactly how this plays out. But I think we're relatively confident in the direction that we're heading, and that's why we're going that way. We're real curious to see how the podcast audience grows. One of the biggest exciting things about this change, folks, and I can't tell you how happy I am about this. I will get up and dance after the podcast. Is if you've ever struggled with the premium login for the podcast, which we know thousands of you have multiple times, that issue is going to be going away. But on a different side note, if you already are using the premium podcast RSS feed, we are going to maintain that. So don't think you have to go change. Actually, the new one isn't created yet. We want to get a couple episodes in. But we will continue to maintain that, and you can log in that way for the foreseeable future. But this will make things like allowing us to get into iTunes, Google Play, and a lot better distribution than having a password-protected feed. So.
Yeah, I mean, based on the feedback we've gotten, it's unclear if anyone has ever actually successfully watched or listened to this podcast, but that's about to get a lot easier for sure.
Yeah, and one of the other things too, and this is actually more serious, a user brought this up. We were able to rectify the issue because it was a third-party app causing it. There was actually a security concern, not even a security concern. There was an app that was exposing usernames and passwords. Actually, I believe that app got ripped out of the Google Play Store because of it until they fixed it. So. But yeah, so those issues have all been cleared up, and we made sure we were all secure on everything on our end. But it was a potential issue that was brought up by a user, and we took care of that. So I think that's most. I think you did a pretty good job.
All right, see you tomorrow, Brad.
Yeah.
Oh wait, sorry. Is there more?
I know you posted your Pixel review, Paul.
Yeah, a little premature Pixel review.
Really?
Normally I would have held on to that thing for a few weeks before I reviewed it, but there's been this thing hanging over my head here, which is that every single time I open a web browser, there's a new complaint about the Pixel 2 XL, like every single time. And look, I'm not seeing these problems. The truth is the display is pretty great. I mentioned that washed out thing in the direct sunlight. It is more washed out than my previous phone. There's no doubt about it. I compared it to 3 other phones. It's about equal to one phone, and it's more washed out than the other 2. I don't know. It's just the way the screen is. But I don't have any major issues or what I would call real problems. From a design standpoint, I think it kind of hits just barely on what I would say is today a modern smartphone design, meaning a tall 18:9-ish aspect ratio, 6-inch-ish display, edge to edge, that kind of thing, near bezel-less, whatever. Yeah, sort of. It's just good enough there. But, you may recall a few weeks, month ago, whatever it was, I wrote an article about, what really matters to me when I think about moving to a new phone. What is it, And it really constrains my choices because one of those items is Project Fi compatibility. We're talking about 3 phones that were built this year, and then maybe 4 more phones that were built, 1 or 2 years ago. Not a big list of phones. I'd like to see that change, but that's one thing. Superior camera, huge deal to me. The previous Pixel was, for whatever issues I had with it, and I did have issues, the camera was like superior. It was great. And the camera in this phone is even better. So that's been very pleasant. Beyond that, though, how could I possibly recommend this phone to anyone? How? Yeah. There's no way. If you're educated enough about the topic, if you know enough about the phone and still want to buy it, that's great. I am going to keep mine. I literally paid $1,000 for it. I am going to keep it. I'm going to use it. I'm not returning it. This wasn't one of those things like, I think people misunderstood this with the Samsung Galaxy S8 Plus, but I bought that expecting to keep it as well, and I ultimately returned it. And a bunch of people were like, oh, you were going to do this all along. And it's like, no, that wasn't the plan. It's just the way it kind of worked out for me. But with this device, it hits enough of or checks enough of the boxes or whatever for me, and I feel okay with the screen having used it. I mean, look, if the thing has burned in a week from now or something, or I see any of these other problems, of course I'll return it. But right now, I don't have any intention of doing that. In fact, as soon as today, I'll be returning my previous Pixel to Google to get a $400 credit toward this purchase. Well, up to $400, assuming they don't find some problem I'm unaware of. But again, just from kind of a conscience perspective, I couldn't recommend this phone. There's no way. Could you imagine what it would be like to have someone read this review, say, well, Thurrott liked it, throw that $1,000 at Google, and then get something that didn't work correctly? There's just too many reports. It's too many. And I don't think we can trust it. And I'll be writing about this. I've written a little bit about it in the past, but I have some serious issues with Google's phones, period, which I just don't understand. In fact, it's very reminiscent of the issues I have with Microsoft when it comes to Surface. It's like this thing that seems like it's going to be awesome, and then in real life, it's like, what is going on here? You would think that major companies like this would have a better handle on quality control, and would be more able to hit on the promises that they make to people who are spending a lot of money on these products. So it's disappointing. So anyway, I'm going to use that disappointment, but I don't think you should. Or at least I can't recommend that you do.
So I'm not going to get too deep into this because we'll save it for tomorrow's show. Speaking of disappointment, Paul, I ventured to the Apple Store and I bought these little guys, which you can't really see.
I have never liked you less than I did when you bought those things. I mean,
well, we can talk about this tomorrow, and I'll explain why I bought these. But I will tell you one thing, Paul. Don't go into an Apple Store and pick up the iPhone X. Don't do it.
Oh, no. So, by the way, that's the other thing that happened to me over the weekend. A friend of mine who lives on the Circle here bought an iPhone 10, and I got to play with it. And let me tell you something. My first reaction was, holy shit, this thing is really nice. And it's got this interesting size. Like, it's not as big as the Plus,
right? But
it's bigger than the regular iPhone. It's kind of right-sized. It's nice. And I, by the way, I thought of you. I actually, when we talked about the new iPhones, and you were like, yeah, but I assume you are now getting one of these. Like, you have to.
I haven't. Well, let me put it this way: if they would have had them in store, I might have just bought one. But I don't. Like right now, it's like 3 to 4 weeks wait time, and it's like, yeah.
So order it. Just order it.
Yeah, we'll see.
I'm going to get one too. By the way, to be clear, I'm not switching to the iPhone 10 or anything like that. But I'm on the iPhone upgrade program, and I can't. I'm going to wait until they have like a SIM-free version, which they don't yet for the iPhone 10. I think they're waiting to fulfill all the carrier stuff. I will have to exit the iPhone upgrade program to get the SIM-free version, but I will do it at that time.
Yeah. Let me just throw this little anecdote out there. So my in-laws just ordered, actually my in-laws and my sister-in-law, they just ordered essentially 3 iPhone 8s, and we walked into the Apple Store. My wife picked up the iPhone X and said, why'd they get that old piece of crap one and not this new one?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I know. It's night and day.
It really is nice. So
we kind of make fun of Apple for the way they do things because it's so richly deserved. But I would say, for whatever it's worth, I mean, the iPhone 8, like my son had to get an iPhone 8 iPhone 8 because his phone died, and he was on might have been the original iPhone 6, but 6S at the very latest. And his phone died. They couldn't replace it, and I said, fine, he's due for an upgrade, obviously overdue maybe. And I would say, compared to it's actually a pretty nice step up, even though it looks the same. It's got different materials, different colors. It's fine. Like if we had never been shown a bezel-less phone, I don't think a lot of people would complain that much about the iPhone 8.
Yeah.
The problem is we have seen a bezel-less phone, and when even the notch thing, which I've made fun of endlessly on Twitter, like when you see it in real life, you're like, okay, actually this is okay. I'm still not sold on the Face ID thing. I just don't. I just wish there was a thing on the back. I really, really, really prefer that.
Or even just built-in power button would have been.
Anything, yeah. I mean, anything. But whatever. It's beautiful. That is a beautiful phone.
I don't disagree. You got anything else for today, Paul?
Yeah, I got tons of stuff for today, Brad, but I'll just I'll just make that happen on the site.
Well, we'll be curious to read everybody's feedback about the changes to Thurrott Premium. Obviously, we know that some people may be upset, some people may be very happy, but we honestly just recommend you give it a chance. And because we honestly think that it's heading in the right direction, especially the mix of content on the site. So as always, folks, today's show is brought to you by Smart Deploy. They specialize in computer imaging, so your IT team doesn't have to. Check them out, smartdeploy.com/Thurrott, and we'll catch you right back here tomorrow.